Good morning, good afternoon, and welcome to today's Chief Learning Officer webinar, sponsored by GP Strategies. Happy Thursday, everyone. I hope you are all having a good week so far, and excited as I am for today's webcast, Put Play at the Heart of Your Learning Strategy. My name is Steve, and as always, I'll be working in the background here to help answer any general or technical questions you may have. Before we get started, though, I want to go over a few housekeeping items. First, all audio will be streamed through your speakers or headphones, so please adjust your volume there accordingly. If you have any questions or experience any technical issues throughout this webcast today, you can either go ahead and put in the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen, or our speakers have asked to put your questions into the webinar chat, the attendee chat there as well, so feel free to do so. If you have a content-related question, we will save those for the speakers. If you have any technical issues, I will go ahead and address those directly to the attendee. Don't forget, you can chat with your fellow attendees by joining the live attendee chat. And finally, you will receive a link to the recording of this webinar, along with the certification codes for this webcast in a follow-up email. So please allow at least 24 hours after the conclusion of the event before this information is sent. And now at this time, I would like to pass things over to our first speaker. It's going to be Andrew Jolly, Head of Strategy for GP Strategies Learning Experience. And Andrew, go ahead and take it away when you are ready.
Hi, thank you very much, Steve. Really great to be back again with everybody, and very much looking forward to spending a bit of time with you again, all again, this time on a topic that my colleague Rich and I are both extremely passionate about. So today we're talking about putting play at the heart of your learning strategy. And very, very quickly, we're going to talk a little bit about why games work for learning. We're going to showcase three really important games that we've made recently. They're good examples of why we feel there's a revolution happening in the world of games for learning. We've certainly been really busy. And we are then going to introduce you to our new game design model, show you another really nice game example, and a little bit about what's coming next, and what we think you should look out for around the corner. So we've got an interesting time together. Very quickly, a little bit about us. Hi, I'm Andrew. I'm Head of Strategy at GP Learning Experience. So I work very closely with a large team of consultants, looking at how we bring the vast kind of array of tools and technologies and learning strategies together to really make a change in learning for our customers and our clients. Rich.
And hi, nice to meet you, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. My name is Rich Calcutt. I'm a senior learning consultant and game design lead at GP Strategies. And I've been playing games pretty much my whole life. I've been designing them for quite a bit of it as well. But most importantly, I've been a learning designer also now for quite a good portion of my life. So this is where my passion is about bringing these two things together.
Great. When Rich and I got together to think about what we were going to talk about today, we thought the kind of question we have really is why we are making more games than ever. And we hope that by talking you through some of the stuff we're doing today, that question will answer itself. It happens that every year we're doing more and more game-based, what we will show you as game-based projects. And we are through a moment where we could have thought, well, this is just a kind of a blip and people playing around with something fun and shiny. Games have been around for learning for a long time, but we are certainly finding more and more of our customers and clients coming to us and saying, right, what can we do with gaming? How can we deploy new types of experience that use the digital medium and play to solve our business problems? So it's absolutely still on the ascendancy. And so hopefully we can answer our own question today as we work through with you. But very, very quickly, what do we mean? What do we mean by games? Just to kind of paint a bit of a picture, we've got a few quick examples. You know, we mean strategy games, games where you're having to think hard, play hard, solve problems, construct things to understand strategic strategic challenges.
And the great thing about strategy games is we think that they are brilliant at teaching complex cause and effect relationships, and they really encourage people to perform analytical thinking. Puzzle games, and also I'm going to make a special mention as well to escape room games, which have been a big feature of our games projects for the last couple of years. It seems like they've really had a resurgency in digital form recently, and they're really good. They've been really popular. We make them both for individual play, group play, and they give like a really nice sense of intrigue to content, and they sort of enhance, I think, people's natural sense of curiosity around a topic.
So arcade games, so simpler game style, so maybe quizzes or much more fun kind of games that you'd recognize the format and style of, but that use that deploy kind of knowledge related content, if you like. So we do a lot of these, and there are many other versions of these out there as well that you'll recognize. Rich. We also have, scenario games where we're developing games based on real situations that may be more like business simulations at one end, or just situations that you're in and you are asked to make decisions and so on. Simulations as a term is something perhaps more that we would describe as an engine, if you like, that represents a more complex model in the way it presents out. So it could be a business simulation, or a finance simulation, or a sales type simulation, or whatever. So those were really just quick examples of the kind of games we're talking about, just so that you know. But none of those are the big examples that we're going to be showing you. They are just a quick jump through the kind of stuff that we do all the time. Some of you may have heard us use the term gamification and also true game. So, Rich, do you want to explain quickly what we mean by those and why they're different?
Yes, sure. And I'm hoping you're hearing me okay.
Yes, yeah, got you now.
Okay, great. Yeah. So yeah, it's always worth a quick level set on terminology around gamification and what we have started calling true game. Gamification, it's about layering game mechanics on top of otherwise fairly traditional digital learning content to make it more engaging, make it more rewarding, sticky, encouraging competition. But there does tend to be a clear divide where you can say this part of the product is learning content, this part of it is the gamification layer added on top. Whereas in contrast, a true game is the gameplay and the learning are absolutely inseparable. You can't point to one moment in the product where somebody is either just learning something or they're just engaging with the fun game aspect of it. The objectives, the gameplay, story, game mechanics, the visuals, even the audio actually sometimes are fine-tuned to convey specific information and allow players to practice key skills and behaviors. So, and the important thing to say is that it's not that one is necessarily better than the other. It's just that they have different applications and will be more or less effective in certain situations.
So a little bit about why games and why games work. Rich.
Yeah. I mean, and this I like to say that, you know, sometimes play is just the best way to learn something. Games have this unique power to communicate highly complex ideas and relationships, and so we say as well, you know, when we play, we learn. The two are just totally linked. I think that games are possibly the most powerful tool we've got for learning. When we allow ourselves to play, you know, we're learning in some form or another. It's inevitable. And you know, games really aren't just fun. They test us, they teach us, they engage us, they spark joy and curiosity, and they have a lot of dimensions as well. And yeah, by making smart design choices when we create a game for learning, we can get players to do lots and lots of things, you know, not beyond just being in a sense of play, but doing lots of other stuff as well and engaging lots of different learning modalities.
Rich, how about the kind of demographics that we're talking about? I mean, games of this sort, digital games, are very much part of everybody's lives now.
Yeah, absolutely. I think games more than ever transcend cultures. They transcend you know, different age demographics. You know, pretty much everybody. You know, lots and lots of people, more people than ever, are playing games, especially younger people. It's just totally in the DNA of the Gen Z millennial you know, population. So I think that's why that's part of the answer to our big question today is as to why games are on their ascendancy. It's because more people like that are entering the workforce. That's certainly part of the answer.
Yeah. Sarah has put a question in the webinar chat, which I invite everybody to do if you have a question, saying, can we share some examples that highlight that games drive greater engagement and what businesses are using gamification? Well, we'll show some examples very shortly, Sarah. I think we have not found, I can't say a sector that isn't using games, from finance, automotive, and all others. In fact, there are very few, as you'll see, situations that you cannot derive, you know, an excellent game for learning from.
And I just wanted to speak very, very briefly to a previous question that I can see up the list from Althea about, can we identify any games for team building? There's probably too many to list, but certainly one that we see quite a lot is escape room games, specifically group-based escape rooms. So in real life, you know, you can go to a physical room and play escape rooms. You know, they're quite popular, but we also make digital versions of those for people to do in facilitated live sessions. And I believe actually we've even quite recently launched a virtual reality version of a group-based online escape room, which is awesome for team building.
Yeah. So just to pick up on another angle on why games work, you know, we talk about if you say, well, what is the key mode we're in when we're engaging with the game? You would probably answer play. But there's more to play than that. Play in all its forms really is a drawing together of multiple modes. And we talk about learning modes all the time. In a world of blended learning where we have so many different ways of engaging with our learners, from digital to live to support systems to coaching, mentoring, and everything in between, each one of those is really predominantly a different learning mode, and we can pull them together into great blended learning designs and experiences. Play in a gamified context really deploys a whole lot of those and you'll see those. So, for instance, we've just pulled a few here. It's a play involves failing and trying again. It involves, getting involved and experiencing things, sharing, competing with one another, collaborating. We've got complete there, doing stuff and seeing progress, experimenting, solving, watching other people do things, winning, it's a very competitive thing in play, and so on and so on. So these are all important learning modes that we would design to use when we are changing behaviors. And they all are critical within the play and gaming experience. So when people say, why does play work? I say, because it does all these things. And there's almost no other single channel or medium or strategy that does do all of that. And just to pick up on one of the things Rich was saying about escape rooms in answer to the question, we're often asked, what are the most popular types of games that you develop, and what are the key areas that you would use them for? Now, you'll have access to this slide. We'll be sending those out to everybody, so you don't need to we don't need to go through it all. But we've mentioned simulations, very, very good for leadership, decision making, commercial awareness, and so on. Branching scenarios are the absolute kind of killer app of the gaming world and learning, I think. Again, it's about decision making. We do a lot of scenarios to do with things like code of conduct, ethics, risk, and so on. Escape rooms are really good for team building, we've said, and also, testing knowledge of specific things like processes, methodologies, and so on. We've got role play, very, very good for people skills. We've got strategy tactical games, again, closely related to simulation and scenarios, but can be...
Another one for that list is also negotiation skills. I've seen a really nice game recently on giving people a chance to practice a negotiation in a tactics strategy stuff game. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah. Arcade games are generally simpler, can be very good for just testing immediate recollection of knowledge. Quizzes, been around forever, but there are so many different ways you can make a quiz really exciting. And we use quizzes in induction, a lot in product training, and so on. And then puzzles, which there are many different ways of developing puzzles, but a lot of that is about problem solving as well. And they can be really fun. We all do Wordle and Sudokus and things like this in our spare time, and there's a really nice reward there when you solve a problem together or on your own. Rich.
Yeah, well, I hope that what we've been showing you so far and what we'll continue to show you is evidence that what we do is combine the science of learning with the art of play, and I say this because it is that combination of the two things that's really important, because you might get a game designer who will make a brilliant game, but not necessarily one that's going to meet anyone's learning objectives anytime soon. And likewise, a great learning designer without that head for games probably isn't going to make a game that's all that much fun to play and engage with. The winning formula is that combination of the two things. And so I think like a question that we want to put to you before we start showing you more examples is whether has anyone here used games in your learning strategy, and if so, for what kind of topics?
So if you have used games in your learning strategies, just pop that into the webinar chat and the kind of topics you've used. It would just be interesting to see what everyone has.
Jeopardy style game.
Yeah, very nice. New hire training, great. We do develop a lot of onboarding games.
Seeing quizzes, team building, virtual scavenger hunt sounds good.
Disaster response, great. Onboarding again. Yeah, scenarios, escape rooms, lovely. Leadership team building. Yeah. There's some great leadership related games. Quizzes, absolutely. Escape rooms, scavenger hunts, yeah.
And just to call out the opposite, I have just seen somebody. Sorry, the chat is moving very quick, but I did see somebody say that they haven't, and it's the first time they're hearing about all this. So that's great that you're here anyway, and hopefully you will learn a lot more.
Perfect. Cahoots there, great, very good. Well, that's just great. I mean, keep them coming, and hopefully we will pick up on some of those shortly. So. The first game we're going to talk about, that I'll talk about, is something we did for Visa. Now, based on what Rich has just explained about gamification and true games, this is closer to gamification in one sense. This game was developed to enable account executives to accurately and usefully sell a massive range of products that Visa have. The challenge was that there were people were very, very aware of a certain number of products within the Visa portfolio, if you like, but there were many others, and the game was really developed to solve a problem of encouraging everybody to explore and learn other product ranges, so that when they see the opportunity in a customer context in real life, they are able to draw together the different products that Visa have in the world of commerce and so on, and be able to sell them accurately. Mm-hmm. So we quickly developed there are in fact two areas to this. One, which we're not really showing, is what you might call more traditional digital learning, and then this is a kind of layer that sits on top of that and beside it, which both tests your knowledge of that digital learning, but also allows you to understand how all the different products, of which there are many hundreds, relate one to another. So we developed this kind of metaphor that is a kind of travel related, that looks like a map, and you can see the nodes there and the different colors of the kind of the train lines or whatever represent different families of products within Visa. And it's highly competitive because the audience, who are very often in a sales context, are motivated very much by competitiveness, and so it seemed to be really an important part of the design. You are able to choose to do the learning itself, which is, as I say, more traditional digital learning, or you can do a number of challenges to test your understanding of the content. You have a dashboard. We've got a really nice sort of, the way often gamified learning presents itself is a kind of, score related, level related. You can see how many products you've completed down there, and so on and so on. And we've got special achievements and everything that you'd expect.
It's kind of like a super gamified front end to the learning. And I think part of our design inspiration when we went into this was, we were saying to ourselves, how can we pack the most possible gamification into this to make it, to really bring it to life, to make it really, really fun for people to play and to get involved with their learning. And I think that's what we've achieved here. There's so much to do in this game, and it's certainly not designed to be played even not in one sitting, not in 2 or 3 sittings, but actually people were playing this over many, many, many sittings, dozens of sittings over a period of several months, because there is so much content in this game, so much to do, and everything you do, you get points for, and everything you do is tracked, and we have just an endless stream of data coming from this product to show, what parts of it people are engaging with, which parts are they getting, when it comes to knowledge checks and things, what parts are they getting right, what parts are they getting wrong, what are they clicking on, what are they not clicking on. And all of that also gives us a springboard for when we want to make updates. And indeed, the client working with us has been making updates to this product for about the last 2.5 to 3 years.
Yeah. So it is a massive project. By the way, this screen shows a number of scenarios that you can jump into, and you can engage with a fictional customer, and you can try and solve their problems and sell them the right suite of products, and then you get your points and you get your awards and so on and so on. It's a really nice game. We learned a lot making it, and it's influenced a lot of further products that we've developed for people. The results were that we got massively good scores from everybody who played it. And importantly, account executives who played the game delivered 3 times the number of sales opportunities as non-players. Now, that transferred into numbers looked really, really, really good for Visa. So we actually had the data and the results. This is another great thing about developing games, digital games, is that you can take the data from the way your audiences are using these in a way that you very often can't with other more complex blends. And so that's something we really, really focus on. So what is this
on that one, Andrew? Sorry, is about how long it took to develop that one. So slightly tricky to say because there was a lot of learning content that we developed, a lot of knowledge check content as well as the game front end. But I think, Andrew, from first conversations to launching the first version of the game was something like 9 months, I believe.
Yeah. Which with a big project like this is probably what it's going to take. These are ground up programs developed from scratch. So yeah. So
sorry, just because I can see another question immediately above is about how easy is it to add branches, for example, and this sort of thing, and update existing learning. It's actually really easy, relatively speaking, but it's easy enough because it's all developed in a really modular way. So for example, you can plug out and plug in a learning module or a knowledge check module or one of the customer scenarios as soon as products change. And in Visa's world, products are changing all the time. So we have to stay on top of those things. And that's why we made it in that modular way.
We will, if we don't get to your questions, we'll try and take them at the end of the session, and we're very happy to stick around for a while after the hour and answer some more of your questions. But we've got quite a lot to get through. So for us, what does this show us? I think it shows that you've got big organizations taking games very seriously, investing in them as a core tool for learning and training. And the results show us that they are really delivering business results and success to those organizations, which is really exciting. And I think the word is getting out there, and we're very happy to be playing the game while we can see this kind of success happening. On to something very different, Rich.
Yeah. So still within the world of finances and technology, but totally different, is how not to suck up money for Invesco QQQ. And this is a product that we developed that helps young people in the United States. It's specifically targeted at US college students to gain essential financial literacy knowledge and basically get better at handling their money at this crucial time in their lives as they're entering adulthood, and they have a lot of overwhelming financial responsibilities on them, very, very quickly. So this is it's an online game. What you're seeing is screenshots and some moving graphics engaging with the world. It's basically a 3D world that we created, filmed with characters, filmed with puzzles, filmed with financial knowledge, and players will enter the game. They explore. They can explore different parts of this fictional town and college area that we created. They can talk to all these people. Each of the characters in the game, they all have a financial dilemma, and it's your job as the player to help them overcome that dilemma through giving them advice based on what you learn throughout the game. And this is, Andrew introduced this by saying it's kind of the opposite end of the spectrum, and in many ways it is. Not least through the art style or through the writing. All of this stuff that we put in this game, and I'll say again, about audio, it's absolutely all fine-tuned to for this audience. We show them videos in a TikTok, really fast-paced TikTok kind of style. We show them scenarios. We show them, we give them takeaways, which, much to our surprise, our student testing audience said that they love, takeaway information, especially stuff that they can print off, no doubt a great expense in their college libraries. And, they can take that stuff away with them, and they've got it, forever. So it's all very, very fine-tuned to the audience and tested all the way through production as well.
This is one of the games that we can give you a link to, and you can go and play yourself. So we'll do that towards the end. I'm going to only give you the link towards the end so that you don't all go there now. It's really, really, it's a kind of big flagship project, and I'll say a little bit more about it towards the end of the hour. How about the results, Rich?
Yeah, well, we are obviously, delighted to see that since we launched the game in November 21, we've had 250,000 players. So that'll be predominantly US college students. 86% of the people that we spoke to about the game said that they did take action as a result of what they learned in the game, and over 90% of them felt better informed and more confident about their finances. And the standout quote that we love, this is the kind of the gold dust that you want, from any kind of learning game, or any sort of learning at all, really, is one of our testers said that one of our respondents said that they wish they'd done this sooner. This game would have answered so many of my unsolved life questions. And does it get any better than that? I don't know.
Yeah, it doesn't. It was a really exciting game to work on. It was breaking the mold completely of learning games. And in fact, when we think about what this game really shows us, again, it's a maturity. It's another kind of maturity for us. The fact that a very large finance organization who have huge amounts of sponsorship power in many different areas, and indeed do sponsor a lot of sports, were ready to get behind something that was basically a digital learning experience in some form, and use it to connect with this audience. It is a whole kind of step change for us. And I think for the industry, and to get the results that we got and the numbers that we're still getting is extraordinary. So I think it just shows that learning games are moving out of kind of within the walls of corporate and out into the kind of real world as well, which is a big change for us, which is exciting.
And before we move on to our question to the room, I did just want to try and answer two questions in one. So yes, everything that you're seeing here is developed for clients. It's not sort of an off-the-shelf thing that we sell to many. It's all built from the ground up for a particular client and learning need. And in terms of the tools we're using, we use lots of different tools depending on the need. But the two that we've just shown you here, Visa and How Not to Suck Up Money, they're both built in React JS, and also How Not to Suck Up Money it was also created using a web-based game engine called Play Canvas.
Again, we will come back to answer some of the questions at the end. And I see Micol in Madrid, or Micol Madrid, has posted the URL for it. So go and have a look, go and have a play. I think you'll find something really, really interesting there. I know you will. So the question, next question we want to have is for the people who have not used games or who question using games for learning. And really, it's kind of why not? What are the blockers for you if you've ever had them or have them still in using games? Thank you. Yes. Put your answers in chat. Money and time, getting executive buy-in. Yeah, and we have had projects where our internal sponsor in an organization said, "Look, can we think of another word, not games?" Because our board will just think we're wasting money on people having fun, and so we had to think of other ways of describing it, digital scenario experience or whatever. Yeah, getting buy-in is important, but there are so many great examples of games that work and of results coming through that you can, you can show success here. Long development can be long. We'll come to that shortly, but there are different ways of using, models that exist. One of those escape room projects that we showed you at the beginning, we have used that kind of that pattern and indeed the technology underlying it over and over again, which means that we can roll out those kind of projects very, very quickly. Yeah, time is an issue. It can be an issue. We're talking about design, and we're talking about a lot of questions that we need to answer. And so there is a bit of an investment in time, and in some circumstances, it does take a little bit longer than developing normal digital solutions, certainly longer than 9 days, but the reward that you get from developing a game that is really engaging is huge, and we'll come to that as well. So one of the blockers that we often get is, and interestingly, we haven't sort of got any of those yet, is about the complexity of design. And when you walk into a situation where you're developing a game, the number of different possible routes you could take is huge. So over the years, we have been developing a model that means that we can actually do this fast, accurately, and kind of hit the bullseye early. We're going to spend a few minutes just quickly talking you through that and showing you an example of a project using it. So over to you, Rich.
Thank you. So yeah, like Andrew said, we have a 3-step model, and what it's about really is getting to the bullseye, getting to success as quickly as possible, and designing something that people are going to love and learn from. So step 1 will be familiar to a lot of people. It's about understanding design pillars. So we could just jump to the next slide, I believe. Thank you. Yeah, so we like to form what we call design pillars. They are a mixture of statements that we make about the learner and the player profile, the learning objectives we want to meet, the play context, the performance context, so how people are going to take what they learn in the game into the real world, everything to do with brand, tone of voice of your organization, and the success criteria of the project. And we try to boil all of those down into no more than 5 statements, which we call the pillars. And those are statements that we then refer back to whenever we make a decision about this game. And they come in very important for step 2. Step 2 is finding the shape of the game, and shape in this context is a set of 24 criteria that we group into these 6 groups of challenge, immersion, playability, learning, fun, and engagement. And within each of those groups. As I said, there's these 24 criteria. And when you make a decision about those criteria, about what this game should be, this is what you end up with, this kind of circular, jagged shape. What it represents, though, in this context, if I look at the orange segment here, where we've got testing, teaching, decision frequency, decision complexity, is we're saying, okay, in this example, in this shape, we have a medium amount of testing, we have quite a lot of teaching, we're going to make players will be making decisions not all that frequently, but the decisions they do make are going to be very highly complex, and there's a lot of power even just in that one section. And we have these 6 sections that we talk about. We go on and look at team working, the amount of the length of the sessions that players are going to have in this game, the amount of repetition we're going to use, the number of sessions we expect people to play with, how strategic it is, how many win and loss conditions there are, and also how much randomness there is in the game, how much realism, whether it's personalized, how much story and narrative we put in there, and as well, is it a competitive game? How many options are there when I'm playing the game? Is it straightforward? Is it linear? Is it non-linear? How many options? How many ways can I learn from failure in this game? All of these things, and also, to be honest, probably quite a lot more, are things that we're considering when we create a game.
So
once we have, sorry, go on, Andrew.
Yeah, I was just going to say that may seem really, really complex, but it is a way of having the conversation and with the whole team that are involved in designing a game solution for learning, and making sure you keep in mind all the possibilities as you move through, so that you don't get to the end of a design sprint, if you like, and go, oh, but we didn't think about X, because you've had those conversations all the way along.
Yeah, absolutely. And then when you've had those conversations and you have this idea of roughly what type of experience we want to create, this is when we then move on to step 3 of the model, which is developing the core gameplay. And as you may know, if any of you have tried designing a game before, you'll know that any game has a core gameplay loop. And the gameplay loop is the activities that players are doing repeatedly throughout the game. And what we do is we make sure that any activity that we ask a player to do in one of our games has to absolutely support, it has to be in service to a learning objective very clearly. And we go through this exercise and we make sure that if we look at one of our gameplay systems or an activity in the game and it doesn't absolutely correlate with a learning objective, then we say, well, why is that in there? Let's get it out. Let's put something else in. Again, it's a way of having the conversation and just making sure that you're making something that is absolutely aligned to a learning objective.
I was just answering a question from Darcy, how many people are typically involved? And it could be 4 or 5, it could be more really involved in a team that are designing, co-designing, but we'd have customer representatives, learner representatives, learning designer, game designer, all working together. So let's look at our third example and show you the model in practice, if you like. Rich, do you want to tell us a little bit about this one?
Yes. So we created a game for a global public health organization, and the aim of this product was to test players on their ability to handle a crisis situation involving a disease outbreak somewhere in the world. And so the players who are playing this game, they are representatives of this organization who go out to far-flung places in the world, and they really deal with these kind of disease outbreaks in real life, and so they've got to be absolutely on it. We created a very highly immersive sim. We sort of drop people into this fictional world we've created. We tell them that an outbreak has occurred. We give them a set of objectives. We tell them about the people they're going to meet, We tell them, we give them this primary objective, we give them a whole bunch of secondary objectives, and also some hidden objectives that they may be able to complete along the way. We put them on the map, and we kind of tell them, go and figure it out. You know what you need to do. They've already done training, so this is now, they're very much in sort of test mode here, and it's an immersive sim in the sense that we give people lots of conversations to have. They need to be in sort of like a detective mode. They've got lots of tools at their disposal, lots of characters they can go and meet. It's really up to them to go and solve this puzzle of a disease outbreak and find out, how it happened, who's affected, and ultimately how it can be stopped and prevented in the future. One part of the game that I really love is we're able to look at the decisions that people make throughout the game and then give them a rating of how well, what kind of decision they made in comparison to other players who are also playing the game. So they get that sense of kind of competition, but also collaboration. They can see how they're doing against their peers.
It's a really nice feature. It's a really nice feature of the game, this one, actually. So that, did you want to just talk us through that model in action as how it relates to that the game we just saw there?
Yeah, so this is exactly how we came up with this this type of game. So we started with the client talking about learning objectives, talking about what players need to do, what they need to learn, how they need to be tested, and what they need to do in real life after they play this game. And also we talk to them about the realities of what it's like when they go and do this in real life. And these are the statements that we came up with that underpin all the decisions that we made when designing this game. So we said, players are smart, we know that. We're going to be absolutely soft skill focused and decision focused. So it's not about, the hard skills of disease management, filling out forms and, doing tests in a lab. In this situation, it was all about the soft skills. We acknowledge that the world is really complicated. There is never a right or a wrong answer. It's always somewhere in the middle. And we absolutely need to make this immersive and believable so that people can play this game and come away thinking, yeah, I've actually had a meaningful, realistic disease outbreak experience here, and I could go and do this in real life. And then how that translates to the shape of the game turned out looking something like this. So in the learning section, we said we're absolutely in test mode rather than teach mode. So we shouldn't really be communicating any new information to people. It's really, we're testing at this point. We said that we want them to be making lots of decisions, and the decisions they are going to make are going to be of a reasonably high level of complexity. Now, one thing I will say is that when you make people make lots of decisions and also lots of complex decisions in a game, you have to kind of balance that out in other places. So we didn't want to we wanted them to be making decisions but not be kind of overwhelmed by the look and the feel of other gameplay scenarios. So if you go onto the pink section here, Andrew, thank you. Yeah, so we really toned it down in terms of humor and metaphor, because we wanted it to be believable. We toned it down in terms of the amount of team working they have to do, and that's kind of accommodating for the other parts, as I mentioned, of lots of highly complex decisions. We kept the length and the number of sessions to a kind of a medium level. And in terms of the playability in the blue section, we toned down the randomness. We wanted it to be quite again, a realistic sort of thing. So if somebody was to go and play this game again and test themselves again, they'd be faced with the same types of decisions as they were before. So they can see themselves getting better over time. And it's quite a strategic game. It's quite non-linear. We have lots of story and narrative. It's highly, highly, highly realistic. We said that was absolutely key to this game. The realism has to be, as close to real life as we can get it in this format. And in terms of the challenge, in the final dark blue section, There are loads of ways to fail in this game. In fact, failure is probably the main way that people are learning. When the game tells them, look, you failed to achieve this objective, you've done this thing incorrectly, this person is really unhappy with you because of something you said, something you've done. We wanted it to be, we wanted to give people loads of ways to fail, and as a consequence, loads of ways to learn from that failure. So without going through all of them in a fine level of detail, this is the shape of the game for this client, and how it then actually feels to play it. Our core gameplay loop is about listening, asking questions, responding to those questions, gathering information, and then going and doing it all again. So we have that kind of core gameplay loop, and around it we also have a bunch of more gameplay features, which are things like reviewing their primary and secondary objectives, traveling to different locations around the world map, reviewing intelligence, meeting different characters, and then also managing the team of outbreak response workers that they're engaged with. So there's a lot to do in this game. It's really complex, but like a disease outbreak, that we're trying to imitate, it's a really complicated thing to deal with.
Yeah. There've been lots of questions. Again, I think we'll try and come back to them at the top of the hour for anybody who will stay with us. And we just want to talk you through a few more points, really, around where this brings us. I think what that game that we just saw there shows us is that games can be more than just sort of eye candy. They can be very complex, very challenging. And in this case, they can be trusted to deliver critical learning content. And that game has won awards and been massively well received as well. A game like that can be, by the way, answering a question that came earlier, translated, because it's largely text-driven, translated into different languages as well, relatively easily. So very exciting. Just a tiny quick visualization, really, of what it looks like to go through that. We use Miro as a sort of collaborative tool. Many of you might use Miro or Mural, very similar, to bring together teams specifically when they're not in the same zone. That Invesco game was developed with a team across the US and Europe. So we use Miro a lot. We develop creative workshops. For some games, there's a lot of emphasis on branding and look and feel, and so we'll have sessions around that. You can tell from the Invesco game we showed that was very important for that customer, that client, to make sure that the visualization was something that was really going to appeal to the audience. And so we did quite a lot of concepting around visual style, about developing characters that are representative of the audience and realistic, and so on. And ultimately, there's a whole lot more behind these things, from launch to marketing to communication. That particular game, How Not to Suck at Money, is the first game we know of that was launched in Times Square. A very exciting moment. And we hope to be back there again one day doing something else. But it's highly collaborative. There are many different skills and capabilities that come together to make it work. So really, we're back to the question that we started with: why are we making more games than ever? I hope that we've answered a lot of those questions by showing you what we're doing and how we're doing it and why we're doing it. But to work that through with a little bit more depth, Rich and I thought that there are three key reasons. One of those is that clients that is the sort of maturity of learning games. I think clients that have embraced them want more of them, and we really do feel that we've only just scratched the surface, but that people who are engaged with learning games and developing them and rolling them out in organizations are spreading the word, And I think that the way we now design with models such as ours, but there are others, by the way, of course, show a kind of maturity of thinking. When Games for Learning started some years ago, in our industry, it felt to me like everybody was inventing from scratch every time they developed a big solution, and we feel like we've reached a level of understanding on how to do this quickly and effectively, hitting the bullseye and repetitively, that gives us a sense of really knowing that we're doing the right thing for our customers.
And I think also what we've shown is that games really do work as tools for learning. Time and time again, we've been able to see that the things that we've made, they do have the effect. They do have the effect we've designed them to have. They absolutely demonstrated the ability to show the cause and effect relationships, and that they force people to think critically, and the ability for games to do that, I think, in my opinion, is really unparalleled.
Yeah.
And the value of games as well, so many people, when we asked about why aren't you using games in your learning strategy, said time and cost, and I agree, that is a factor that's really important, but the cost of them, it is coming down. We're in the habit of, we make games, parts of which can be reused, parts of which can be kind of used in a modular fashion. So like I said with Visa before, plug in, plug out, they can be maintained over the course of a fairly long amount of time. So the cost to reward ratio in the right situation, it can really be off the scale.
And there are many different models as well for simple. We've chosen to show you three kind of what you might call flagship games that we've developed in the last months or years recently. But there are many others that are really smaller or more kind of focused on specific issues. And we've used kind of models and engines and developed those much faster as well. So we do. Cole has just asked if we have any demos for models we've developed. We do have a couple of kind of off-the-shelf kind of core engines that we could show you, Cole. And so we will try and connect with you and do that. Something you wanted to say, Rich, as well, in answer to quite a lot of the kind of blockers we get.
Definitely, yeah. I mean, I think games definitely aren't just gimmicks. And one of my bugbears has been that games can be sort of perceived as this, as shiny objects. They're like the like some sparkle on top of some more traditional learning content, but this absolutely doesn't have to be the case. Games, they are incredibly powerful. And as Andrew said a second ago, I think we really only have just scratched the surface of the capabilities and the potential for learning in the games space. So I think there's a lot more that we can say about them. Games, I think they are the future of learning. Arguably, one of the most important cultural touchstones for the newer generations who are entering the workforce. And I said at the start of this that games transcend many different cultural and demographic boundaries. They are like a universal language. They're allowing communities to grow and stay connected in the commercial gaming space. So they absolutely have the power to do that too in the learning space.
I'm aware that we're very near the top of the hour.
Yes.
I think just 1 minute on where we see games going, and then we'll sign off with those of you who need to go on and do something else and stay and answer some more of your questions for those who can stay. If that's all right with you, Steve.
Yeah, that's totally fine.
Great. So yeah, very very quickly, next gen gaming trends for games and learning, absolutely is multiplayer and community play. So most of the games that we show are single player games, and I think that multiplayer games, both competitive types of games and collaborative cooperative games, they are there's so much potential in those. Of course, AI, we had to say it at some point today, AI is going to radically change how we make games, but also mean that games can include much less just purely pre-scripted information, but also allow intelligent, hyper-realistic feedback based on what the player's inputting into the game, and also always on live service games with roadmaps of updates. We're already starting to do that, but instead of just releasing a single game for a single point in time that is launched and then is taken off the shelf sometime later. In fact, games being developed with a full roadmap of updates to both the content and the gameplay to help people stay engaged and invested in the long term.
And some of the areas we're talking about, we're talking a lot with customers in the industry, in our learning world, about talent, and so we are finding that there are some really interesting areas that we think we're going to be looking at soon around using games and gamification in recruitment, possibly in selection. There are some great stories there. Telling brand story. Rich is working on a number of projects in that area already, and so on. So I think that from my point of view, solving strategic problems for customers, we're going to see games spreading out from what you might call traditional learning into employee experience and talent related solutions, which will be really, really interesting. So I think that brings us right to the top of the hour. I want to say thank you on our behalf for everybody who stayed with us and taken part in this. We had some amazing questions. We have some questions now. If Steve allows us to stay on for a few more minutes and pick some of those up for you, we will. But from me, thank you very, very much. And I hope you've enjoyed the session.
Yeah, no, we do have a couple questions. Have you guys already gotten to the ones in the Q&A box? There was like about 4 or 5 in here. I want to definitely get to you guys if you want me to address those.
I haven't looked at the Q&A. No, I've just been on the chat.
Yeah, all right, good. So some of these may have been redundant if we've already been to them earlier in the session, but this first one from Austin says, how do you work with accessibility concerns and games for learning?
Well, accessibility is really important to us, and so all of the games we make with to achieve a strong level of accessibility. So they're all screen reader compatible. All of the colors, like for example, color contrast, we make sure that that's appropriate. So we adhere to standard web content accessibility guidelines, yeah. So we absolutely want people to be able to experience the games that we make, no matter what they may be working with. So yeah, there's various ways that we achieve that.
Awesome. All right, the next one here from Samantha says, what types of games do you recommend using that can be modified for persons with disabilities? For example, what types of games are screen reader friendly?
Yeah, so pretty much same thing. Yeah, so yeah, well, I think all of the games that we make these days are screen reader accessible.
All right, good. The next one here from Adu says, what was the ROI?
I'll pick that up. We can't specifically share the details relating to the games that we've shown because of confidentiality, but I can say that an example like the Visa one, the rewards in terms of taking a cohort of salespeople and driving the number of engagements that they developed, sales opportunities 3 times, was way in terms of reward for the business beyond the cost of developing that game solution. So it's yes, these projects sometimes take time, and they involve a lot of thinking hard to make sure that the design is absolutely right for the need. But where the design process is taken properly through the steps that we've talked through, you do hit the bullseye, and you can see massive return for your investment.
Awesome. We have 2 questions here left in the Q&A that I think kind of go along hand in hand with each other, and I did see a couple more here in the chat. But this next one is, what software is used, or what is best software to develop gamify education in an efficient manner?
Well, we use a lot of different tools. So at the one end of the spectrum is e-learning authoring tools, such as Articulate Storyline. There's a lot of powerful tools in there, in that suite that give you the opportunity to make games. In fact, the last game we showed you for the public health organization, that was made in Storyline. So very accessible. And then we also use a variety of other more kind of hand-coded tools. We use, as I said before, I think React. We also use web-based game tools such as Play Canvas, and a whole bunch more, some of our own homebrew stuff.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I think we have one more here in the chat that I saw from Kathy. Do TV game shows use similar design and theory that you do?
I don't know any TV game shows that are using our 3-step model, but yeah, I mean, I think at the heart of any.
Oh, we've lost you, Rich. We lost your sound there. I'll try and pick up on what you're saying. At the heart of any game design, I think there is something very similar. I think you're going to be asking a set of questions that are really similar to those that we had there when you're designing a game. But you're talking about something perhaps that's more entertainment. The really interesting thing for us, I started out developing games that were pure entertainment many years back, and the challenge for us is bringing people into a sort of state of flow, so they're almost learning by stealth as they're playing. And I think if you're designing a game show or something that is really fun, you don't have to think about the other key reason that this game exists, that is to bring about behavior change. So I think that we have an interesting, dimension to add to things like TV panel games.
Awesome. Well, unfortunately, I think we're going to have this be the end of our presentation here. I do want to thank Andrew and Rich one more time. Before I do, is there one final note or one key point you want to address to the audience, either one of you?
Well, I'll just say that it feels like the beginning of the story. I mean, every year that goes by, we think, wow, have we done everything? Have we explored all the possibilities? And I've never ever felt like we've done anything but just start opening this amazing door into a world of deeply engaging and fun and meaningful digital experiences that kind of relate to human needs and senses of reward and engagement. So I love it. It's a really exciting world, and an exciting place to keep your eye on and keep considering.
Thank you. That's awesome. Thank you, Andrew. And thank you again, Rich, for taking this time out of your busy days to present this great information to us. I know I really enjoyed it. And from the looks of it, looks like the audience did as well. So thank you. I'd also like to thank the audience for joining in and for continuing to support our Chief Learning Officer webinars. And of course, yes, thank you to our good friends over at GP Strategies for sponsoring today's event. Be sure to register for our next webcast This one being from our talent management brand of webinars titled Your Skill Journey Starts Here, taking place Wednesday, June 28th, 12 p.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. And be sure to look out for the follow-up email that will include the certification codes along with the recording to the webinar. So be sure to take a look at that by tomorrow. This concludes today's webcast. Stay safe, everyone. Have a great day.